World number one took on the world champions in a cracking contest in Dublin. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Before we get into the game, I'd like to say a few words about one of the people who inspired me to get into rugby YouTubing, and that's Gareth Mason, or G-Man as he's known to a lot of people on YouTube. Gareth sadly lost his life earlier this year. He was hugely into his rugby, and his coverage was one of the best things to watch. He was so enthusiastic about rugby in general and the box especially. And this would have been a game that he would have absolutely loved. So rest in peace, G-Man. Onto the game itself. Conor Murray was winning his 100th cap for Ireland in this one. He's been a great servant to the team, normally coming off the bench in recent times, but he actually started this one. There's a lot of talk in the run-up to the game about the kick clash that happened on Saturday. The RFU, to get a lot of stuff right off field, but this was, it's almost unforgivable, right? Because like South Africa are really the only team that we have to change kits against. Like we do, I know now, like to sell jerseys, they will wear their alternate kit against other teams as well. But like, why not make it something that is easier for people? So like we had there a while ago, a few years ago, we had a white one with dashes of green on it, which would have been absolutely great, like in a game like this, to make it easier, especially for people in the stands. On TV, it wasn't so bad, but I know when you're in the stands, it can be really difficult to tell the difference. So that's kind of not a great look for the RFU on that. And it's not like the jersey itself is very appealing for people to buy either. So I'm not sure why, and it's not the only time. The last time they played as well, excuse me, the last time they played as well, same thing happened. Like they had a dark kit that clashed with South Africa's jersey, and it's stupid. The only good thing is that in the World Cup, South Africa, as the higher seeded team, are going to be considered the home team. And when there's a kit clash, it's the home team that are supposed to change kit. It's a rugby tradition that goes back almost since the beginning of competitive rugby. The thinking behind it is that the traveling team probably are only going to bring one kit. So it makes more sense for the team who are at home, who have access to potentially more than one kit, for them to change. So in the World Cup, we should see South Africa in the change kit and Ireland playing in green. Or even like if the two teams played in the greens are different enough that it'd actually be less of a clash. But onto the actual game itself then. South Africa, they start off, they're big physical men and carrying the ball hard into the Irish, and also being very fast line speed, getting in the Irish faces, making them make mistakes. They've got lots of territory. They're making the rucks very difficult for the Irish to secure their own ball or to get fast ball out. And Ireland are trying to move the ball, but a lot of the time, because of the pressure that's coming on them, they're making mistakes. South Africa looking really good in the opening phases of the game, but Ireland are the ones who actually get points on the board first. Ireland are attacking. South Africa ping for offside. Sexton pops it over after 2 minutes, 3-0 to Ireland. South Africa then, they come back again, and big men are running into the Irish all over the pitch, and they're making the hard yards, and Ireland is soaking up the pressure and making the tackles, but South Africa are just, creeping forward all the time. And referee was playing advantage to them for a penalty under the post. Wilson goes for a kick to the wing. It kind of bounces near the right touchline, but actually bounces back over Matt Hansen's head. He loses the ball over his head, and I believe it was Colby, right? Colby went up to get the ball, but Hansen was there. Hansen did tackle him in the air, but there was cover there to stop him going over. So we go back for the penalty. Wilmsa converts a penalty from right in front. I think that was his only successful kick of the day, but it's 3-3 after about 9 minutes. We go on then to about 15 minutes in. Ireland have been getting a little bit of space at this point. They're trying to get to the edges because South Africa their defense is very dense and there is space out wide, but it's actually hard because of the rush defense to get that ball out there. They eventually get the ball out to Mac Hansen, but it's above his head, so he has to catch it. That takes away a lot of his momentum. He still, though, makes a run forward. He beats a couple of players, and then Peter Steptoe and Cheslin Colby tip tackle him onto his head. There's a review. The referee decides that there's some mitigation there, and it's only a yellow. He goes for yellow for Colby. Peter Steptoe doesn't get any kind of punishment at all for his part in it, and I guess it's one of those ones where even though both of them were in that, the referee decided that Colby was the one who twisted him and who caused really the tip. So even though both of them were involved, he decided just to yellow card one. One of the assistants was trying to kind of argue with the referee that there was a higher degree of danger in it and that maybe he should think about a red. But at that stage, the referee had made up his mind and he was asking the TMO to confirm that, his decision was a yellow. So go for yellow for Colby. He's off for 10 minutes. Ireland then lose Stuart McCluskey to injury around the 20-minute point. So McCluskey, he had a decent cameo while he was on those 20 minutes or so that he was on. He was able to make yards. Like, he's a big physical guy, but he still has soft hands. He's got a bit of subtlety to his play as well. He beat, I think, 3 South African defenders in one run. And I think it was either it was an arm or a hand injury, right, that he went off with that seemed like it was serious at the time, but then they said afterwards maybe it's not as serious. So, and I think he's back training now this week as well. So I guess it wasn't as serious as they thought. But Jimmy O'Brien is on for his first cap. He's been really good for Leinster in the URC, so it's nice to see him getting some representation there. He actually stepped up from the Ireland A side because Henshaw was injured. So then instead of playing for Ireland A on Friday, he steps up as McCluskey is brought into the first team. He steps up into the test side as number 23, covering a lot of the backfield positions and centre as well. Ends up coming on in centre and actually does a fairly decent job. South Africa also, around that time, they lose Luke de Jager a few minutes after, I think, McCluskey. So that's kind of a big blow for them as well, because that locking partnership, him and Etzebeth, one of the best duos, certainly in the second row in the world. But South Africa then, during the sin-bin period, they ride out the sin-bin period and they're actually the team pushing rather than Ireland. So they're putting on the pressure. They do get another shot at goal. It's Wilmse. I think it's his last kick of the game that he takes from the tee. It's right in front and he misses it by a long way. It's the kind of, if you've ever seen in maybe a Barbarians game or World Cup where they let a forward take a conversion or, normally a conversion or a penalty or whatever, just kind of for a laugh, that's the type of kick that this was. He missed by so much. But Ireland don't really make any hay while they've got 15 against 14. South Africa are able to ride it out and get back to 15 without conceding any points, but they do concede the next point shortly after they're back to 15. So we're playing advantage to Ireland. Ireland beginning to find a little bit of space in the South African 22. They kind of get a little bit isolated. We go back for the penalty that we're playing advantage for. Sexton puts that one over for 6-3. We got about 5 minutes or so to halftime at that point. Around the same time as well, Conor Murray goes off with an injury. I think it was like a groin injury. He made a bit of a burst through and he seemed to pull up. So James Gibson Park comes on for him. Then right before halftime, South Africa back in the Irish 22. They're putting a bit of pressure on. They get another penalty. They decide then they're going to take the points, but Wilmse is not going to take the kick. So Colby steps up. He puts it over from in front. He just about keeps it inside the post. He almost missed it. So 6-6 at half time. As I said, very physical, very attritional for Ireland. The closest that we came to a try in that first half was when Dan Sheehan knocks down a kick. He wins the race to the ball, but as he tries to ground it, he knocks it on. Clear knock on, no chance of a try there. That's pretty much the closest that we came to a try in that first half. Ireland also lose Tyke Furlong at half time. He seemed to have got some kind of ankle injury. He's replaced by Finlay Bealham, who actually puts in a great shift in the second half. We've also seen like that in that first half, Ireland's maul defence was superb, and it's superb throughout the game. They really didn't let South Africa get any change out of that at all. And South Africa had to move the ball a lot from their mauls rather than kind of making the meters that we see them regularly do. South Africa, very physical, disrupting the Irish attack. They're making the ruck a real contest, slowing the ball down for Ireland, making Ireland make mistakes as Ireland were trying to move the ball. They put a lot of pressure on where Ireland sometimes when they're trying to move the ball, they're losing ground as well, just because the defense is so quick and there's a lot of pressure there. Really very interesting first half of rugby, and very looking forward into the second half. Ireland get a penalty after about 5 minutes. It's very kickable. Sexton has a bit of a chat with James Ryan. They decide they're going to go for the corner, kick into the corner, line out, catch and drive. It looks like that South Africa have maybe shepherded them into touch, and maybe Ireland would regret the decision that they made. But below, as everybody else is kind of walking away, Josh van der Flier is on the ground celebrating. We then go to the replay. We see that he grounds the ball just on the line, just before it goes into touch. And he has the presence of mind as well within that maul to make sure that he keeps his body and legs in the field of play as well. For that, after having a couple of looks at it, then referee decides, yep, it's definitely a try. Sexton misses the conversion, so we're at 11-6 after about 47 minutes. A couple of minutes later then, Ireland turned the ball over at a ruck. There is the hint of maybe an Irish foot in the ruck, but then I think from Dan Sheehan, but also there's an illegal neck roll on him that gets missed too, but ball squirts out, Ireland get it. Doris with a great offload to keep the ball alive before he gets pushed into touch. Ball gets to Jameson Gibson-Park, darts through a gap in the South African defence. Ireland then have numbers. They spread the ball. Jimmy O'Brien does really well to fix Colby. He puts the ball then out to Hansen, who goes in the left-hand corner. Sexton is closer with his conversion this time, but still misses left again. 16-6 to Ireland at that stage. South Africa then, they start to chase the game. They start to open up a bit more. They're applying pressure in the Ireland 22. And Mostert, he goes through a gap and he's able to stretch out to score. There's a bit of a review with the TMO, but it's very clear that he's got the ball down. He doesn't lose contact with the ball at all. The conversion, not surprisingly, is missed. It is 16-11 at that point. Ireland then get a penalty with about maybe 6 or 7 minutes to go. Sexton steps up. He converts that for 19-11. South Africa, at this stage, they need a big finish if they're going to pull this one out. A couple of minutes later, they do produce a try. They get themselves upfield. They're under the Irish post. Faf de Klerk is on a scrum half. He gets the ball out quickly. Ball comes to Willie LaRue. He's tackled, but he's able to offload from the ground to Ebenetzebeth, who then puts in a great run to the corner. He draws in 3 Irish defenders, and then he's able to free his hands and pop the ball over the defenders to Arica, who goes over in the corner. You won't be surprised to know that the conversion was missed. So at that point then, we are at 19-16. We've got a couple of minutes to go, but South Africa never really come back from there. There's no kind of last minute, last ditch defence for Ireland or anything like that during the game. Ireland finished the game deep in the South African half. They're on attack, and it looks like if they needed to score again, they probably might have been able to, either through forcing a penalty or going for a try, because there was a lot of space on the left wing at that point, and a lot of space in behind this South African defence as well with no cover. But they don't need to do that. They get the ball out. Carberry gets the ball off the field. While celebrations from the Irish, well deserved. Like, this was an immense game with two of the absolute best teams in the world going, hammer and tongs at each other. Great game to watch. Not tons of tries in the game or anything like that, but still, it was one that you couldn't really take your eyes off of. Final score is 19-16 to Ireland. Deserved win for Ireland. I believe that they really coped with the physicality in the first half. It lessened a little bit in the second half, but these guys are South Africans, and when they emptied their bench as well, it's not like they were hitting any soft or anything like that. It's just Ireland maybe coped with it a little bit better in the second half. They were finding more space, and they were moving the South Africans around a bit more as well there. Maybe a bit of tired legs helped them to do that. South Africa definitely could have done with a goal kicker in this one. I've heard people say that if South Africa had a goal kicker in that game, they would have won. But there's a couple of things on that. First of all, Sexton missed a few kicks as well for Ireland. So if you're saying that everyone gets their kicks, then maybe still Ireland win. But also, if South Africa had a kicker, it means that either they had to change like Willemse at fly half, or Colby a fullback to get a genuine kicker on the field from the start. And if you do that, then if you're switching, one of those players is going to have a big impact on how the game is going to go. The game's not going to go exactly the same way. You're not going to get the same penalties being given to you, or having to make the same conversions, or getting the same tries, because that player is going to make different decisions than the player that they replace. Which means that the ball's going to end up in different parts of the field. They're going to make some decisions better than the person that they replace, and some worse. So you can't really just say, let's just swap that person out for the actual kick, and then we win the game. Rugby doesn't work like that. But still, it is something to consider for South Africa in the future, because the game is built a lot on getting their driving maul going, and that being the source of a lot of the go forward, a lot of their tries. And then if they don't get that, winning penalties and kicking their penalties is something that they're very good at as well. So it's something definitely for them to look at for next time out. In terms of just the overall game, this was, as I said, two fantastic teams going head to head for 80 minutes. South Africa definitely can play a more expansive game. We don't really see it in the test arena, but if you look at the URC teams, you can see that there's a lot of talent in their backline. And if they want to move the ball, and if they want to step through teams rather than running over them, they're more than capable of doing that. So if they can blend that in with the power that's already there, then they're going to be a real test for Ireland in the pool stages in the World Cup. I believe that this South Africa team definitely can get better before the World Cup. And for Ireland are going to have to improve. They can't just say that this is our level and, okay, we've beaten South Africa, so we can do it again in the World Cup. To beat South Africa again in the World Cup, I believe Ireland are going to have to play better than they did today, and they're going to have more up their sleeve as well to unleash on them there. So both teams are going to just definitely have an eye on that World Cup pool meeting, no matter what they talk about in terms of let's play it game by game and etc. etc. They're still thinking about that for the future, and there's going to be a lot of planning going into that over the next year. Ireland, before the game, heard them speaking about, being world number one, not meaning anything to them at all, because the real measure of the best team in the world is winning World Cups, and that's what South Africa have done. And South Africa, even though they didn't win today, you can see why they are world champions. Ireland, though, even though it's maybe they don't look too much at the rankings, they can be very happy with how they produce this win today. They're definitely going to be pleased about the fact that they have beaten the world champions even in a close game, because it's close games like this that really build confidence for players. And especially the when Ireland had to make a lot of changes in terms of their starting lineup, and then changes as well coming from the bench to the wider squad, gets the belief that maybe the starting first choice 15 have already, but if you get more of that in your squad, that's the kind of thing that gets you deeper into World Cup. Remember, Ireland have never gotten past the quarterfinals in the World Cup, and the last time it was played in France, they didn't even get out of their pool. So these guys still have a lot to prove. In terms of then going on to next week, I can't wait for France against South Africa. That's going to be another cracker. Two amazing teams going toe to toe in that one. Another kind of clash of styles, although the French can be very physical as well, but they do love a counter-attack and they do love to spread the ball too. I'm absolutely it's a mouth-watering prospect to see those two go ahead. And it's one of the things that I love about the November internationals is that you see so many of the top teams week after week going at each other, and team that was down one week can turn it around and produce a performance the next week. This is a great one, and there's plenty more to come. So how do you think your team have gone so far in the November window? How do you think they're going to go for the rest of the games?